Please join me as I welcome Mrs. Lola Cardoso onto the stage. Yes. Please join us on the stage, Lola Cardoso. Thank you very much. Break is over. Please make your way back to the hall, wherever you are, if you hear my voice. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Any of the seats after here? Sorry? This is fine. I did have an actual order, but I'm still waiting for others to come. Yeah. Okay. The next person I'm introducing, Jason Njoku, founder and CEO of Iroko. Everybody knows Iroko TV, right? Yes. So please welcome Jason on the stage. Thank you very much. To hold you. They will. Yeah, for sure. Anyway, it's fine. I'm sure.
I hope you got good insurance.
We have insurance. Okay. Can we have? Do we have Lanre Akinlagun around? Wow. Lanre. Drinks.ng, Lanre. Okay, he's around. Come, Lanre Akinlagun is the founder, CEO, Drinks.ng. Drinks.ng is an online hub for drinks, as the name gives it away. Thank you. Thanks for making it. I'll be sitting here. All right. Okay, the last person, do we have confirmation that Olumide Balogun is around? Oh, and he confirms for me. Thank you so much. You're welcome. So Olumide Balogun is the head of marketing, HMD Global, what we know as Nokia. So welcome him on stage. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right. Anyway, it's fine. Okay, so I'm going to start. You don't like it? Can we get you? Okay. Okay. Whoa. So I want to start with a very silly series of questions. The questions might sound stupid, but indulge me. Okay. So how many of us here have a smartphone? Show of hands, please. Show of hands. A smartphone. Smartphone. Show of hands. Okay. How many of us have an active internet subscription on our smartphone? Show of hands again. Oh, okay. How many of us have bought something, paid for something online on our smartphone? Show of hands. Wow. So this is a room of digital natives, right? So if I was to take a poll and concluded on this poll that is here, I could assume that is representative of the market and say, okay, I think about 80% of us here raised our hands that we have smartphones, we have internet-enabled phones, active internet subscriptions. And I could say, 80% of Nigerians are online. Someone said no. But those are the kind of stats we keep hearing. Is that not so? You hear, 91 million internet users, over 50% of the market, right? Or something. And then you start hearing stories of different online companies shutting down. Last year, Go My Way shut down. The year before, everything, or was it the same year, shut down. They're all shutting down. So what's happening? Is there really a market online? Is there really a market online? That's the question I want to ask now. So I want to start with Larry. Larry, yes. So you started drinks.ng in 2013, am I right? And the last time when we spoke, you told me you had a passion for drinking. You love to drink, and you felt okay, and it was out of a frustration, like because you could not find a place to get drinks in large quantity. Am I mistaken? Something like that. Yeah. And before then, I don't think anybody. There might be people who were selling drinks online, right, I guess, but I don't think anybody thought it to have like an online hub for selling drinks, right? So what was the reasoning behind that time, and how? Because this was very early on in the internet space and whatever. What was the thinking behind then that? How did you conclude that there was a market for drinks online? And how has that market over the years, how has it grown for you?
Okay, surprisingly enough, so the story wasn't quite like how you said it. But coincidentally, I was always interested in the drinks market, even back in the UK.
Okay.
Whether through the offline channel or the online channel. I say coincidentally, the idea really cemented during Jason's wedding.
Yeah, Jason's wedding.
That's
Yes, I remember that.
Jason's wedding. When I asked him, obviously I had the interest in the business, and I asked him how he got it. The drink sorted, and it was, is a mutual friend of ours that just gave him a guy. And then I started asking more people, and everybody just had a guy. And I just didn't understand, why does everybody have to have a guy? Why isn't there somewhere you can go to just go and get this? So it just sounded like there was just an input of a middleman just for no reason. And there just seems a large majority of those middlemen. So that's really where the idea came from. So what's your other question?
Yeah, so how was that market? So how was the market early days compared to now? How would you compare the markets then? Like your target market then.
I mean,
was there a demand? How was the demand grown over the years?
Thankfully, we have a consistency of bad leaders. So people will continuously want to drink to get over their frustrations and how to deal with them. But the market keeps growing because Nigeria has one of the youngest populations in the world. And that young population every year will graduate into a legal drinking age. So the funnel of drinkers will not stop anytime soon. Yeah. So for us, from 2013 to 2018, the business is consistent. There's never been a year that we haven't grown. We've grown every year. Some years more than others, but we've always grown every year. So the business is still very good. But the real question, I guess, is where is it growing? Whether it's online or offline for us. Yeah. And that's the debate I guess you want to have. But yeah, the business is growing.
So what you're saying is there's enough demand for drinks online. Because I know there's a demand for drinks, right? But are there enough people, like what I'm asking is, are people open to getting drinks online? And how has it changed over the years?
So there are two different markets. And I discovered this through, I can't remember what that company's called. There's that baby clothes shop. And we were consistently focusing our efforts on directing our purchases to consumers.
Okay.
And that was tedious, that was long, that required high marketing spend, a lot of remarketing. And then after a while, we just began to realize that I think I went to, I can't remember what it's called, that shop that sells clothes. They've got blue and yellow, whatever they're called.
Pep?
Huh?
Is it Pep?
Pep stores, that's it.
Yeah.
So I was in Pep stores one day, and I saw these market-looking women. And they came into Pep stores with these huge Ghana must go bags. And they just packed a ton of clothes, like lots and lots and lots of clothes. And I looked and I thought, well, I know there's no family planning, but these women can't have that many children. So I just got so curious, and I was in Ogudu. And I literally just followed them. I followed them in the cab. I followed them to where they were going. And they went to Ojota, and they just lied those bags open on the floor and started reselling the clothes. And then I realized that, okay. Then I went to Computer Village 2 days later, then I found out that the guys there were buying mobile phones in mass quantities from Jumia and just reselling them.
That's interesting.
So it just turns out that there's a market for the drinks, but maybe not as big for the consumers as there is for B2B.
Okay, so B2B.
So,
more
in
of a
retrospect,
B2B.
there's a market, but it's more for the B2B at the moment for us than there is for the B2C.
Okay, okay. Jason, you started something not similar necessarily, but I would say, yeah, when it comes to putting video on demand, the market for video on demand in Nigeria, you practically kickstarted that, right? And I don't think many people imagined before then that Nigerians would want to watch Nollywood movies online, right? But I've seen how Iroko has grown over the years. But I'm seeing a trend, and I want you to say something about that. I noticed that, for example, there was a time when the site was the irokotv.com as a channel for consuming video content was taken down. You focused on Android, right? Then from there, now you have kiosks. One of them is in our exhibition center. We see them all over the place. And then there's also Iroko on Star Times and all that. So it's looking to me like there's a shift towards offline. Would that be wrong to assume that? Especially for a company that is primarily online. It seems to be shifting offline. Why, can you explain the reasoning behind that?
Okay. Can everybody hear me properly? Can everyone hear? Yeah.
Sound, guys. Can we? Sound is.
Yeah? Okay. So, at core, we remain an Android-focused movie on-demand platform. So at core, we will always remain that. I think, and this is my 8th year in Nigeria and 7th year running Iroko. I think one of the big realizations, I guess, that I had was this market is incredibly immature in terms of people actually using their phones to do things online. That is just a cold, hard reality. Now, obviously, in this room, everyone should have an Android device. They should have an internet connection. There's one or two guys I saw who didn't put their hands up. I'm just assuming that they're not in the wrong place. But I think at core, this market for the masses is very, 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 very early when it comes to just doing things online. I think over the next 10 years that will change, but over the last 7 years, I think most of the companies which have stopped because they have come to that realization too late. So, Lanre's example where a lot of the people were buying from Jumia to sell to retail is a perfect example of what happens when you try to grow a venture-backed company with aggressive pricing. You just transfer the wealth elsewhere in a strange way. So, but that was required at that time to build e-commerce in Nigeria. And I think everyone is now trying to retreat from that. So the realization for us is if we wanted to get big in Nigeria, it's going to take 10 years. Did we believe we had long-term investors who would give us 10 years worth of capital? Absolutely not. I think in 2014-15 with the oil price crash, you immediately saw a lot of the investors just leave. So the class of investors who invested in myself, Wakanal, etc., are a completely different class to who are investing in like Andela, Flutterwave. It's just a completely separate group of people. So in order to stay in business, we simply had to find customers. So we knew that Nollywood was really popular. We knew there were really big companies who had the money to pay us to create those channels for them. So we simply did that. And it was purely driven by us trying to gain some degree of independence, like as a company. So, like today, people love Nollywood. That is without a shadow of a doubt. But do they love watching Nollywood on their mobile device? I think it's still too early. Again, you've seen the kiosks. Yeah. You know, the kiosks have people in there. What are those people doing? They're literally helping you. As in, guy, give me your phone. Let me do it for you. Mm-hmm. That's literally what they're doing. Yeah. So we have about 150 people out there literally, give me your phone, I'll do it for you. So the problem isn't the phone. It isn't that they don't have the money. It's that they don't know how to use their phone. So it's, you can have your phone back now. It's, the challenge has been education in Nigeria is lagging, the acquisition of the phones, which is very peculiar, and I think that's a cultural disconnect with Nigeria for the rest of the world. If we have this conversation in 5 years' time, I'm very confident that Iroko TV, the core part of our business, will be like much more sort of like bigger than all of the other components today. So whereas today it's about 25-30% of revenues, we expect 5 years, 10 years, it'll be sort of like 80 to 90% of revenues. So we still believe in this, but it's just going to take a really long time to actually get, guy, give me your phone, let me do it for you, and basically go beyond that. So it's just really expensive. It's not easy to scale. You have to do with all the kind of fraud issues that you have when you have an agent network out there. And you know, I must marvel at Nigerians. There are things that Nigerians are doing in our agent network from a fraud perspective that we didn't even know that we could do. Like I'm marveled at the fraud which they're trying to do in that network, but it's the same fraud that happens in any agent network anywhere in Nigeria. So these are the lessons we're trying to institutionalize. These are the things that we're trying to figure out. These are the people we're trying to attract. It's going to take us, again, 10 years to get there. So all we need to do is survive. I think my guiding principle over the last 3 years has been, you know, as long as I can survive, then I think I'll be good.
So stay alive until when the market is ready.
Stay alive. Because it's interesting. People come in, they drop $100 million, they make loads of noise, and then they go. And we've seen it over and over and over and over again. It's not a function of money. I think Congo and Jumia can tell you, no matter how much money you spend on billboards, the customers won't come. It's a question of, do you have the right value? Are people using the internet in a different way? You know, can you explain that value to them? And we have TV channels where we just basically do brand marketing. But to explain to someone how you don't have to use your data to consume content on the phone, like you can't really explain to someone, you just have to do it for them. And the funny thing is what people do now is the agents will drop their number. Whenever they need movies, they'll just call the agent, meet the agent up, and they'll give them more content. So that's a very Nigerian thing to do. I'm at home, I need more content. Can you come to my house? Don't worry, I'll send you money for transport. You go to the house, you give them movies. But that's fine, that's movies on demand, Nigerian style. So we believe it's going to take 10 years. We believe you have to be absolutely patient. You have to be willing to bleed in the short term. And you know, I think what's happened over the last couple of years, it's stronger for the ecosystem. You know, some businesses needed to go out of business. Other ones have really sort of focused their costs. But I think everybody is growing, and I think that's a great thing. So drinks will grow, hotels will grow, other venues will grow. Everyone who's still in the market is still growing. But for someone who's sitting in the US and the UK, as an investor, that growth doesn't look like anything. But the market will still grow.
Okay. So, Olumide, Jason made some interesting points about digital literacy, people having phones but not necessarily knowing how to use it. And then he also made a point about the fact that you could do so much of marketing, billboards, and whatnot. But if the market does not understand or the value or whatever, it may not work. But as you're head of marketing at HMD Global, Nokia, and everybody's aware now that Nokia is back on Android, right? Which is an obvious choice anyway. Everybody's on Android. But I've noticed that for a company that was largely successful in an era where there was more of offline activity, not that there's no offline activity now, but it was more pronounced then. And coming back in an era where there's all the buzz around online, I saw a lot of drive for offline, so billboards everywhere, TV ads, and all of that. And what was the reasoning behind that? Because if I was head of marketing, I'm not an expert here, and I came back in an online era. I'll do a lot of online, but you're doing offline. So why? I want to understand.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question. The truth is, the way we look at marketing at HMD and Nokia is actually exactly the same way that any business should consider online and offline, right? And when we think about marketing, we think about it as omni-channel. You have to be in many places, but for different reasons, okay? So we consider offline marketing from the perspective of top of mind.
Okay.
Like, if you've seen the movie Focus, right, where you are everywhere as much as you can, when the consumer makes a buying decision, you are top in his mind. And a lot of brands do this. A lot of brands, even, that I have the privilege of being here, we are doing this. But when we engage consumers online, the focus is engagement. It's not awareness. We want them to talk back to us. It shouldn't be a one-way street anymore. And that is exactly, whether the market is online or offline, it's not really the question. The question is, how are you going to address an omni-channel approach? Because the truth is, there will always be offline stores. There will always be brick and mortar stores. Because consumers want to touch, feel. It's one of the most strongest senses we have. But they're also online. I mean, there's verified data that says 51% to 62% growth is what we've seen in terms of online revenue, right? So consumers are online, but they also are offline. So when you approach online, you need to have a solution for offline. I guess that's the point, right? And you need to have a different strategy. And I have seen, as an example in Iroko TV, how you've addressed or how you've approached the market. You need to consider the infrastructural deficiencies in the market as well, because I think the industries are different. If you consider online travel portals as an example, it's a 15 billion naira a year market. I mean, practically everyone buys their tickets online. But they don't watch movies right now online because it requires more infrastructure. You need more bandwidth. You also need, of course, devices, which we, as HMD at Nokia, we are trying to get the democratization in there. We're trying to get more affordable devices with better experiences, of course, on Android, so that people can consume, this information online. So I think that the approach has to be different for online as with offline, but it's entirely recommended that even if you're a brick and mortar store, that you have an online approach. And your online approach has to address the circumstances, that we find ourselves in terms of the market infrastructure and some of the deficiencies that we see there. It's my 10th year in technology, and I say to people that when I think back, there's been amazing growth. And I'm very happy, and I look forward to where we are going to take it to. It's very easy to predict the future in Africa because we're something like 5 years behind the rest of the world. So I think that should be the approach in terms of being omni-channel. Definitely there is a move, especially for the millennials, into the online space. Jason, you just smiled when I said millennials. I'll let you.
He wants to say something.
I'm in public.
No, I think especially for the millennials, because what you find is that there are challenges for online. I think one of the challenges that you see is that people do not entirely trust online payment platforms. So that is why when you have an online business, it is important for you to have a solution where people will pay cash. Hopefully that goes away in the future, but that is the reality of today. So we as people that are in, or companies or in industries in the market, we need to be cognizant of the circumstances and make sure that we innovate to adapt to the circumstances. And I think that we will do well.
Okay, thank you. Lola, Olumide has made some interesting points about, combining the channels, offline, online. And I find Union Bank's approach very interesting. So Union Bank is a traditional traditionally offline company. Large base, like markets everywhere in Nigeria, fully everywhere offline. But then I'm seeing you guys. So you guys appear to be going the other way. So you are offline, but you are doing many online things now, pushing for online. So like for example, your app you launched recently, the new app that you updated, and it has some interesting ways where you're combining, helping businesses to deposit money in their accounts through offline channels and all of that. So what's your own take on combining the markets?
So I think you said it right. We might be a 100-year-old bank, but one thing that is obvious, both to a 1-year-old bank or a 1-year-old organization or a 100-year-old, is you have to follow your customer, right? So the conversation around offline, online, is really around how do you remove some of the frictions that exist for an average Nigerian when it comes to financial services. So yes, we might be all over Nigeria, but if you are a customer in a semi-rural area and you don't have a bank, a physical branch location, how do you actually still get access to financial services? So when you think about the frictions that a non-urban consumer has, not Lagos, but even sometimes in Lagos, if there's not a bank branch near you, you're looking for an ATM. If there's not an ATM near you, you're trying to figure out how to either deposit or collect money or move money. So the notion of leveraging our Union Online, or whether it's even Union Mobile, and facilitating payments or being able to request an agent to come meet you is making sure you can take the frictions that exist for an average consumer. I will echo some of the same comments made here already by some of my co-panelists. There is a recognition when you talk about trust. It's critical. If you talk about the market being online, yes, there's a certain segment of the market that will be online. One, because they have access to a computer or a phone or whatever the case might be. But there are many others that don't have. There are many others who don't even have that. There are many others who don't even have literacy when we talk about education. So not just financial literacy, but just even basic literacy to understand what it means to have a bank account or whatever it might be. It may not be a bank account, but how to save money. So there is still many steps that need to be taken when you think about the opportunity offline and trying to get them online. But even for those that are online today, how many of them can do all the things that they require online? It's still tough. So you can start a transaction sometimes, you can consummate many simple transactions, but if you need advice on where do I invest my money, you're not going to look for that online, right? You're still going to need that offline, which is why you would find that most financial services still have some form of a physical presence, because the more complex your transactions are, you're going to need to go somewhere and speak to someone face to face. You're not going to invest ₦1 million if you can't see the person, or even more than that. And right, so it's understanding the spectrum of needs that a customer has, where the friction points are. If it's to open an account, why can't you do that from the comfort of your house? If you're an SME and you don't have the time to go deposit cash during banking hours, why don't you have a simple way for you to deposit the cash, after hours and then get the receipt immediately? There are many options around that, but it's about taking friction out of the consumer experience, and that's why you see a bank like ours who wants to remain not just present, but active in the Nigerian community for the next 100 years, looking at ways to take friction from a financial service experience. So whether you're an individual, you're an SME, or you're a large organization, how do we mediate flows and make you exist and take the frustrations out of banking and make life easy?
Okay, thank you. Lanre, so Olumide and Lola made an interesting point about trust online. And one debate, I won't call it a debate, one thing that hangs around there is in terms of how people choose to carry out transactions online, which is whether pay on delivery or pay before delivery and whatnot. And then you hear different sides of the argument. People will say, okay, they don't trust that when they pay for something online, that the thing gets delivered, or if their money is erroneously debited before they can get their returns and all of that. And you'll be one of the proponents against pay on delivery for online transactions, because in a way, it's like, why are you having online activity and still having a combination of offline, kind of, right? So, but and you made a decision early on, very early on, to just forget about pay on delivery, which was a very bold move because you are still relatively a small and medium enterprise. How did that affect your business? And how were you able to stay afloat, making that kind of decision? Because everyone around you, even the big guys, the Konga and the Jumias, were doing pay on delivery. So the market is already used to that. They expect that. How were you able to make that bold move early on and still manage to keep the business afloat?
Okay, so, I mean, the critical reason why we had to move away from payment on delivery is because we were handling much more fragile goods. And apart from that, a single item that we could deliver was very expensive. Like a single bottle of Hennessy XO could cost upwards of 80,000 naira, and you have 6 of those. A bottle could break. You know, so as much as there's insurance and things, it was very critical for us to make sure that we safeguarded the business from apart from product losses and operational losses as well. So as much as we made that decision to stop payment on delivery, we did have to diversify our business to accommodate the people that didn't trust online payments and wanted to see their physical goods. So just like a panelist has said, we too had to integrate sort of a omni-channel approach to both delivery or pickup as it would. So I would say, I mean, at the moment, we get customers that have paid upwards of 10 million naira for a single transaction, and they've paid online. So the argument for was it a good decision? For me, yes.
10 million?
Yeah, for one transaction.
Online?
Yeah, people have done that. Yeah, people have done that. I mean, you got to remember, we have people that buy drinks for weddings, people that buy drinks for bars, so on and so forth. Now, at the same time, the regular consumer, no matter how small, would still rather not pay online. So we've incorporated different things where we have people can come and pick up from the office. So we've got a pickup center in our office. And we've got certain individuals who we have got contract agreements with where people can pick up from near them as well. We're going into other agreements of other people where the pickup centers will continuously increase. But there are also plans to move offline in a larger capacity. But it still was a good decision. I mean, we survived because ultimately we grew organically through revenues. And for me, it's still the right decision to make.
Okay, interesting. I've been told, how many minutes do I have left? Sorry? How many minutes do I have left? 5 minutes. Okay, I want to throw a general question to everyone. And then I want to take 2 questions from the audience, quickly. I want to throw a general question to everyone and 2 questions from the audience, quickly. Yeah? It will. Okay, so one thing that I find very interesting is everybody agrees there should be a combination of offline and online, right? Obvious, right? But the thing is, most people here are running small businesses, right? Not everyone can afford that cost of running offline channels. I mean, not everybody can afford to have kiosks in so many places around Lagos, or
I can't afford it either.
yeah, or have a channel on Star Times, or have like how many stores does Drinks.ng have now? Offline stores. How many offline stores?
Pickup centers, not stores.
Sir?
Pickup centers.
Pickup
not
centers,
stores. Yeah. About 6.
6, right? Not everybody can afford
but
that.
they're in the highly congested areas where there's a lot of volume.
Okay.
So it makes sense for us.
Okay, so my question for everybody is, how do you as a small business, okay, we've agreed that not much of the market is online, you need to do some offline to capture. How do you as a small business capture that market with a small budget?
It's pretty straightforward. If you can't afford to do something, then don't do it. Again, we're talking about today. In 10 years' time, most people will be online. They'll be doing transactions. They'll be doing commerce. So for me, advice to a small business would be keep it small and just wait. As long as you're surviving, in 5 years, 10 years' time, when everyone comes online, then you'll see the fruit of your labor. But you just have to be patient. There is no shortcut in this market.
So wait for everybody to come online. Olumide?
Yeah, I think I totally agree with Jason there. I think, first of all, the operational efficiencies are very important. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes a lot of small businesses make is you want to you want a perception of success, but you know what real success? A perception of success doesn't pay the bills, doesn't pay the rent, doesn't pay salaries. It's important that you're operationally efficient. That means that you must be paying your bills and be saving enough to grow your business. I think that's the first thing. And I think secondly, is consumer satisfaction is absolutely critical. If you've got 2 consumers only, make sure that you make them advocates for your business. If it's just 2, make sure that when they go out, they can talk about, at Nokia, we measure something called Net Promoter Scores, and people that use our devices do give feedback. Even if it's 2%, everyone at the office knows I'm going crazy because there are human beings behind that percentage. And it's important that as much as possible, we make people happy about the service that we render so that they can advocate for us and then the business can grow.
Okay, thank you.
I would say leveraging partnerships because in many ways the value of your network can bring exponential results to you as an SME. So even large organizations, you have to realize what is core to you, what you're good at. You might have the idea, you might have the customer, but you don't have everything else. Then leverage your partnerships. Even as a bank today, we're a bank. There are many things that are not core to our competency, and what do? We leverage partnerships. So as an SME, you can't run the journey yourself, but it means choosing your partners wisely. It means the partners that also bring exponential results back to you. So whether it's from customer perspective, whether it's marketing, whether it's operational efficiency. So to your point around offline, they can't have as many branches or centers. Then find out those who have an efficient network that gives you the physical presence for you to leverage. Yes, they might require a cost or benefit, but guess what? You can find a way to sell those advantages to them. So I would say leveraging your network and partners.
Okay. Does Larry have anything to say? Okay.
I must definitely say a combination of what these guys said, but most importantly, everyone shouldn't get lost in the facade of what goes on in tech companies in America. This is Nigeria, and the rate of growth in Nigeria is not correspondent with the rate of growth in America. So you have to follow your growth pattern, spend wisely, and make sure you can grow at a sustainable level. Trying to chase a market that you think is there but realistically is not ready for you, you're only going to run yourself into ruin. So the traditional traders are still growing their businesses today. And at the end of the day, the digital companies need to take a lesson from the offline and traditional traders and grow their business in a similar fashion, rather trying to outspend what their business is generating for a market that's not necessarily ready for them.
Okay. Thank you so much. I wish we had more time. I was hoping to have audience ask questions, but okay. So thank you so much to the panelists. Please, let's appreciate them for making our time. Thank you so much.